and gentlemen, next up we have a power panel on managing the widening IT skills gap. And for that, I'm going to call on stage the session chair, Jay Thomas, Vice President, IT Infra and Operations, Verse Innovation. And joining him are Manoj Srivastava, CIO EaseTrip Planners, EaseMyTrip, Sunil Kumar, CTO Shiprocket, and Sanjay Kukreja, CIO and Global Head of Technology, eClerx. Let's welcome the gentlemen on stage. Welcome.
Great to be here and great to be with all of you. Sandeep, Sachin, love the conversation. I think very, very meaningful. Interestingly, I think Sandeep and I were talking almost about a year back, the sense of paranoia which exists in the industry, right? I think we were talking about this fact around some of the quotes in the industry. Like, I don't know how many of you heard of this professor called Christian Clayson. He's one of the leading professors at Harvard. And he said, all companies are destined to fail. I think it's a wonderful article. You should actually read about it. And then there was a sense of paranoia created when John Chambers spoke about, I think it was in 2020 or around, he said, 50% of the Fortune 500 companies will shut the shop in about 10 years, And I'm sure all of us heard about what Jeff Bezos said, right? I know Amazon will be disrupted someday, and I hope it doesn't happen during my lifetime. So I think there was a sense of paranoia created. I think it got amplified now because with the evolvement or evolution of the technology, now came the next challenge, which is around the skill set actually, right? I think I was just reading this data that due to the skill gap in India, the expected revenue loss by 2030 is about $8.5 trillion. That's huge, right? And I think it gets even more amplified when you read about some of the data around IIT employment. I mean, about anywhere between 30 to 40% of IITians are not getting employed. So that's again a sense of worry. I think that's lead to the, I think I'll probably pose one question to the audience here. I read this somewhere that 80% of the death during mountaineering happens during climbing down and not during climbing up. Why would that be? 80% of the death while doing mountaineering happens during climbing down and not climbing up. Anybody want to take a stab on that? Okay, not really. We do a lot of planning to climb up, but we don't plan enough to climb down. I think that leads to a lot of disaster. I think where the journey is leading to, I think that's exactly where we need to do a lot better planning when it comes to our resources, our people, in terms of creating them sustainable. So I think that leads to my first question, and it's mostly centered around the theme of the event, gentlemen, which is all about Gen AI. And I think if you look at it, India is making a substantial progress in the Gen AI world. The quality, but there are concerns around the quality of education around AI. There are concerns around the investment or funding happening around the AI. And there is a larger concern around there is not enough collaboration between the industry and the academia, right? So my question to you is, what are you doing, from your perspective, from your organization standpoint, to make sure the fact that your employees embrace these changes in the industry, and how do you make them excel in their career? I mean, randomly. Manoj, maybe you want to start there?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jaya. Since morning, rather a couple of years, we talk about Gen AI and AI, ML, all those stuff. But thank you. This is a different perspective of the question. So let me answer in my perspective what happened if you go back and understand all B class, B school or IIT and Holden, they are going for only textbook kind of information, right? And now industry is changing very fast. Last couple of decades, you can see technology coming from the automation to digital transformation. Itself is a long journey, and where our course curriculum is not changed that level. So what happened? we recruit the raw people from the industry, and what happened, we train them based on my domain, especially in airline, airport technology, OTA technology. So those things is basically we train in-house. First of all, in-house, we train them not only for IT perspective, but also in a domain perspective, how airlines OTA works. That is one part of that. Second is basically, we have recruiting process. Now we have to see the two options. One is uh, entirely the IT perspective. What is the kind of people we are recruiting? Is like say DevOps, in a security guy, or cloud computing guy. That's one. Plus, we also see the domain specific. We should have a combination both, so that we cannot be retrain them again. So this kind of, we leverage those things and we recruit the resources based on that perspective. And again, we make sure the resources what we're going to be recruit, that cannot be leave in at least 5 years, at least. So that is why our recruitment process is also very strengthened. And we going for multiple round of interview, and then after we can ensure that a process we take place and our culture take place, they understand our culture, and then so that we make sure a person should stay with us.
Awesome. So I think what he's saying is that it's just not about tech, but I think domain becomes so equally critical to be trained. Sunil, you want to take the cue from there? How do you guys are handling it?
You rightly pointed out, Jay. I mean, the stats which are coming from premier engineering institutes is sort of scary, if we have to say. So I'll share how we actually approach it at Shiprocket. So last year, we were in need of hiring around 25, 30 engineers because the company was going through a hyper-growth phase. And the traditional methods won't work, because usually the hit rate is around, you interview 20, 30 people and then you get one, and then also the success rate is 50-50 in terms of cultural fit and other stuff. So we organized a virtual hackathon, and we ourselves were surprised by the kind of response we got from folks who are fresh out of college. So around 300 odd people started the hackathon, out of which, and initially around 550 odd registered, 300 started the hackathon, and around 180 of them were able to finish it, and it was a proper 48-hour hackathon. And then we finally offered around 30 of them, and today those kids are just 2 years of experience, but most of them are still with us, and they are now holding pretty important product lines for us. So the learning here is we have to, because gone are the days where you put people through Coursera courses or in classroom training that, okay, you have to code in Java, go for this Java class and all that stuff which is happening. So the tech is evolving so fast. Since today morning we are thinking and listening about Gen AI, the world is changing more fast than whatever we could imagine. So yes, collaboration has to be done, but the real filtering has to be in terms of you have to empower your people. You have to, that empowerment has to be done. Another thing, internally what we do is every Friday we have a Geek Talk session, an hour-long Geek Talk session on the tech floor. And it is totally by initiative. Any of the engineer across level comes up, floats that, okay, look, I have worked on this innovative thing, which I think should be shared. It can be anything from the product, it can be anything which he may have read, it can be anything of his pet project and all that stuff. So things like those initiatives companies have to take, and because now things won't flow top down. So although if I am the CTO of a company, or I'm heading the tech for the company, it is beyond my individual or my direct comprehension, individual group of 5-10 people to see. So we have to democratize that tech thinking.
Correct.
both internally and externally, irrespective of the levels. Another example, quickly, before I finish, I'll just quote. There are many instances where a person who is 6 months into the system with a year of experience, he works directly with the founder and the CEO on some of his pet project. And we do quick POCs and we then finalize that, okay, now we have to productize it. So that is the kind of disruption in traditional thinking we have to do in order to change with the changing times.
Interesting, very, very interesting actually. Sanjay, you want to pick the cue from there. So yeah, we spoke right from training to domain specific to where, Sunil had a viewpoint in terms of how do we empower them.
Right.
Now, how do you take it from there?
No, I think, both Manoj and Sunil, covered both the points. So we are a KPO, knowledge process outsourcing. We work with all the large banks, all the high-tech manufacturers across the globe, and we primarily work on data. So we close to 18,000 employees, 2,000 in technology, which is software and infrastructure, and 16,000 operations. So, with the advent of AI, it is not only the tech team which needs to get upskilled, it is also a big change from a user perspective. Right. So if you look at traditionally what used to happen, the software team used to build an application and the operations used to consume, work on that application. It then came an era of RPA, which was again tactical automation where an operations person was not that much involved. With generative AI, they are also part of the process. So, Sunil talked about, what we call citizenship development, development initiative. So you have your end users who are using low-code, no-code platform, and trying to pilot from a technology perspective. So in today's era, you have to think not only about your IT team skilling, upskilling, you also have to think from an operations perspective. So we've done a couple of things, there were a lot of sessions out which talked about how, how LLMs, what all do you do as part of LLMs. There is prompt engineering, which is a big part. The way we've architected the stack is, we've taken some elements out of the prompt engineering and other things, abstracted that, created an orchestration framework, so it becomes easier for an operations person. Everybody does not have to reinvent the wheel on prompt engineering and trying to figure which LLM does what. And then, to the point that Manoj was also saying, we kind of infuse domain, because everything that we do is also domain, plus you have AI enabling that domain. So, and on the technology part, running similar initiatives that Sunil talked about, we have been successful in some of the engagement which we've done with academia. We kind of involved with a couple of IITs and IIMs. We've had some good amount of collaboration, exchange of ideas, running proof of concepts along with them. So I think we have fair amount of success.
Good observation, actually. I think maybe I want to have quick feedback from you. I think the retention is always a challenge across the industry, especially in the current scheme of things, moonlighting, high compensation, and so on and so forth. How important do you think the culture is for organization to make sure the fact that we have a higher retention? I mean, Gen Z talks about culture, free food, freebies. They want work-life balance, allow me to work from Goa. I mean, how do you see that? Randomly, just a minute on that.
Yeah, so basically, as I said earlier, we don't believe in a hire and fire kind of, concept or policy. So first of all, when we recruit the people, make sure that we should be stay for at least 5 years, number one. Number two, we not allowed to go in a development part of that, right? Like say suppose we recruit the people in a DevOps people at day first, they're not allowed to go in and start developing and writing the program. So we have to allow them to go with the culture, what kind of culture we have from top to bottom. And best practice is what we did, we introduced from all the HODs, all the employee, even outside employee or vendor, so that they make comfortable, one, when we're dealing with the internal staff and outside vendor, that's one. Secondly, then we can allow all the security aspects. We have to train them, induction program, basically train them what kind of culture we have, what kind of technology we have, what kind of compliances we have. Those things we have to teach them. Then we can allow to go with the floor and they can start working. Now today I can say every department, they have an IT savvy. Even our human level, people also know what is the hacking, what is the kind of phishing. Those terminology we have internally, everybody aware of that. So only technology people not depend upon the rest of the people. I mean, say not other people depend upon technology. They have to fix it. Even though each department have a small technology people and they can fix it. Any complex environment, any complex issue which is faced related to, like say, for a firewall, we have to rebuild or reinstall all those things that we come to IT department. Otherwise, rest of the people are there self-made. That kind of a culture we develop.
Sure. Sunil, you wanted to pick?
See, keeping people motivated, and especially in the engineering and technology function, has become very challenging of late. I mean, it was in a similar flavor earlier also, but these days it is very challenging because of multiple factors. One of the key thing is, if I talk about my org, which is a 300-member tech team, which is a decent size for any startup company. So the average work experience of senior manager plus till VP is around 8 to 12 years. And the average overall experience of people in the company in the tech domain is would be around 4 years. So that is the kind of generation, Gen Z, as you called about. So they are very particular, while we also lay a bit of emphasis on being culturally fit, because that alignment has to happen towards the goal, as Manoj said, that okay, they have to stay for 5 years and so forth. But essentially, from an organization perspective, you have to be very clear that, I'll give you a simple instance. There is an ACE developer who works really hard, but if it's a Friday night, he'll leave office at 5 o'clock invariably. But at the same time, he'll have his Friday night party and he'll be back to work from home at around 10 o'clock and he'll go up till morning. That is the kind of flexibility which these guys are seeking. If you ask them to spend 9 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours in office, so that is the kind of thing which makes things slightly problematic for them. So if I have to summarize, take one word, it's the flexibility thing. And then they will find avenues to make, to get their work, get challenging work and make it interesting. Because the domain in which we are operating, all of us operate, is a complex one. There are enough problems to be solved. If they see a flexible environment and they are rewarded both in terms of financially and also morally, and they are talked about highly. So they'll find enough good problems to solve and they'll be motivated. That's what the thing is for us.
Thank you. Sanjay.
I agree with what Sunil is saying. I think it's a combination of the amount of flexibility you can give, upskilling opportunities you can give, because a tenured employee will be only excited if you can keep on giving him or her enough opportunities to upscale, and the amount of freedom, flexibility you can give. So I think it's a combination which kind of keeps people motivated.
Good. I think one thing I was hoping that compensation also becomes a very critical factor for people to have the stickiness in place. I think we are running out of time, but I think I'm going to give one question again to all of you. We just left with 2 minutes actually. If you have to advise the people out here and all of us in terms of what strategies companies should follow, I think it's going to be complement to what you said so far, but what strategies we should implement, companies should implement to sort of make sure that there is continuous learning and to make the employees or your IT team future ready, because there is so much of evolution in the tech world happening. How do we make sure the fact that people are up to date, people are up to speed, and people are ahead of the curve to make sure that they are, they are ready for the world of Gen AI and so on and so forth? Any thoughts around it? Maybe Sunil, you want to start there? I think we can.
So essentially, what has worked for us essentially is if we restrict ourselves in telling specifically what is to be done and how it is to be done. Instead, you share openly what the problem statement is and what is the kind of solution which we are looking forward to it. so essentially, don't try to play the smartest person in the room, because quite often the reality is I'm not the smartest person in the room. And the people, the team members are more inquisitive and innovative than you. Yes, with experience, and because there is an information arbitrage from a company perspective between me, for example, and a developer or a senior developer, I can give a better direction to the thoughts. So that is the thing, but involve them in decision making, involve them in the entire solutioning of stuff. It can be the tech solutioning, it can be the project plan solutioning, it can be how you approach, how you schedule things. And then people themselves raise to the occasion. If there are 10 people in the room, trust me, if we do repeatedly, 5, 6 of them will rise to the equation. The rest, I mean, it's a mixed bag. So you, any which ways, can't expect all 10 to fire up.
Correct. Sanjay, you want to take that?
So my personal opinion has been putting skilling as part of KRA has never worked. Looking at avenues on gamification of skilling, that has kind of helped. And to the point, Jay, you were talking about, having that skill repository or skill inventory. I don't know which politician was commenting, could be from WhatsApp University, that skill census is the most important thing right now than any other census. So I think, your own employees would be doing a lot of courses which you do not know, which they might be posting on LinkedIn and other things. So making sure, there is enough motivation for them to kind of, put them all back from an inventory perspective in the organization. I think that is very helpful.
Awesome. Manoj, gratification on one side, and Sunil had a view on problem solving. Identify the right problem and give it out to them to excite them to solve it. How do you take that?
Yeah, I would say, keep in mind the life-work balance is very important to stress management. Everybody should have a stress management in an organization. Whether we can call from internally or we call from outsider as a mentor, who basically take them next level of discussion or away from your day-to-day life, and they talk about anything, spirituality or maybe yoga or something. That kind of a session is required from top to bottom. Everybody should be attend that kind of session.
Awesome. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Sunil, and thank you, Sanjay. I think that was very meaningful conversation, actually. I think there's a lot of battle around the employee retention, employee upskilling, reskilling. There are a lot of initiatives government is doing, like the Future Skills by NASSCOM, which is primarily about how do we make our next generation. We are saying about 65% of India's population is less than 30 years old. They are the next people to sort of help us to grow big digitally, and how we scale them and enable them is going to be very, very critical. I think all of us have a role to play in that journey. And thank you so much for your feedback. And I'm sure the audience out there would have few takeaways from this conversation and love to hear more. And thank you again to all of you. Right.